Hello and welcome back to the Real Estate Regroup Show. I am your host, LJ Walker. Well, June 25th is a sad day for most of us Michael Jackson fans, okay? However, I wanted to do another video commemorating all of the Jacksons, to be quite honest with you. And I wanted to shed light on the historical value that they have given us outside of just music. Because I think a lot of fans don't realize some of the other trials and tribulations that they had to endure. So I wanted to touch on that. Okay. So as we all know, Michael Jackson was born in 1958 in Gary, Indiana. His sister, the oldest one, I believe she was born in 1950, right? Now, the civil rights movement was from 1954 to 1968. Discrimination and redlining was all over the country. It wasn't just in the South. I need you guys to understand this, because I realize that history is being erased from many of our schools when it comes to African American history. And I am making this video to make several points, in fact. Now, fast forward. In the 1960s and 70s, that's when the Jacksons had global recognition. It wasn't just local to Gary or the United States. It was all around the world at this particular time, right? So Michael was about 10 years old or a little bit older when the whole globe realized what a sensation the whole family was, okay? But in particular, Michael. Now, the other thing I wanted to let you guys know that I failed to mention in the other videos when I was talking about where they lived. Motown at one time, when Motown left Detroit to California, they leased homes in West Hollywood and Beverly Hills to the family. However, because there was so many fans that would mob them when they walk out, they were actually disturbing the peace. They were getting in the way of the neighbors and what have you. So Joe Jackson, the father, decided, okay, you know what? We're going to move. It's going to be further away, 15 to 20 minutes away from the studio. But he wanted his family to have more privacy, more space, and less, less mobbing from fans, for lack of a better term, right? So that's why he chose self-contained properties. Havenhurst was not the first one. There was another one before Havenhurst, which I understand was extremely, extremely racist. The white residents petitioned to block them from actually moving in. They claimed that, because the Jacksons are a black family, they were going to lower the property value. And even from what I understand, I was shocked about Havenhurst, but they were saying that Mrs. Jackson, Katherine Jackson, they were harassing her. They actually keyed her car, of all things. Okay. But isn't it funny that if you look at the houses in that neighborhood and what they're worth today, guess whose house is worth the most? Their house is. Even that other house where they really were harassed is still worth more than the other houses in that neighborhood. And because it's California and more popular than Gary, Indiana, we're talking millions. So if the house next door is worth $7 million, you can add another 7 because the Jacksons lived there. Not just Michael, but Janet and Jermaine. Okay. That alone gives that house historical value. So, yeah, isn't it funny how that worked out? All right. And then also, Havenhurst would be worth the most because Michael Jackson actually recorded songs there. So that's another reason, besides just living there, the fact that I believe there's a recording studio in there as well. That's another reason why it's worth more. See how it is? But let me digress and talk about something else that a lot of people don't realize too. The 60s and the 70s, it was still racist. Martin Luther King was still alive. Malcolm X was still alive, among a ton of others. You know, those are the most popular ones that everybody knows about. But there were a ton of other, Medgar Evers, for example, that was fighting for equality. Now, here's the thing, though. Even with their global recognition, do you know that they were denied rooms in white-owned hotels? And they weren't allowed to use the restroom, not only in the hotel, but also in some of these restaurants. They weren't even allowed to eat at some of the restaurants, even after they had global fame. It was still dangerous for them. There wasn't much safety, and it wasn't the fans this time. It was just racist people who I believe are very jealous, who had a problem with the Jacksons, amongst other Black artists. All right. So they were actually staying in what was known as the Chitlin Circuit. So that meant that Motown, they had to find Black-owned venues, boarding houses, and private homes that were owned by Black people where they could live. Because, honestly, I don't think all white people are racist, but let's say there's a white person and they live in a white neighborhood. They may have wanted the Jacksons there. I'm pretty sure that there were a few of those, but because of how their neighbors would react, they would probably burn their houses down too. So that's something that you guys really need to think about as well. The other thing too that Motown had to do back in those days is they never let the Jacksons travel by themselves. They let them travel with other Motown artists, such as the Supremes, the Marvelettes, the Temptations. All of them were on a bus, and they would actually build a bathroom on the bus and things like that so that they can freshen themselves up. That's what they had to do, And I want you guys to put this in perspective because there has been so much thrown at Joe as far as, and I'm not saying that he should get off scot-free, but I am saying that the time in which they rose to fame, and even before they rose to fame, I feel as though all of that should be considered as to why, not only why he raised them like that, but also as to some of the things that they had to overcome. As a matter of fact, Michael Jackson even said, one of the reasons why he worked so hard, it wasn't just to be, quote unquote, a perfectionist. And by the way, many of us who are African American, I know I was told many times, listen, you got to work twice as hard in order to be respected, because and even more so because you are a Black woman. And I'm pretty sure he was told the same thing. The whole Jackson family, I know that they were told the same thing as well. So racism also not just his father beating him and his father doing that. And even if you look at, his father beating him, part of it had to do with the fact that our society was so racist. I know that for those of you who come from other countries, you have a hard time understanding it. You have racism where you are, but it is not to the level, well, let me not say all countries, but many countries, it's definitely not to the level that it is here in this country. Like, you really got to make sure that your children are safe. You got to tell them things here that I know in other countries, because my mother is from another country. She doesn't have to tell any male relative, make sure make sure you have this, make sure you have that. You don't have to go through that in Jamaica, but you do have to go through that here in the United States. Hell, you don't even have to go through some of the stuff that we go through here in Canada. And I know that they have racism up there because I got family that live up there too. Canada and England and Bermuda and Haiti, Bahamas, except, several other places. And I can tell you, after visiting many of these places more than once and having relatives that live there, that you really, you're more free to a certain extent than you are here. Here you just have a little bit more opportunity than in those other places. Okay? But yes, Michael, yes, part of his success was to win his father's heart, was so that his father could see him, which I have seen all over the internet. However, he himself also admitted that he wanted to open the door for other artists to come in. Okay? And let's be honest, when you listen to some of his songs and what he is saying, no, everything is not about being black, but there are some other songs that are conscious, that he was trying to send a message to everybody, no matter what race they are. Listen to the Earth song. He was an activist. He was an ambassador of music, in his music. All right. And I want extra respect placed on that man's name, because he really deserved it. And because he was who he is, it did make more people comfortable with black people, with as far as hiring black people in other positions that had absolutely nothing to do with music. You understand me? So, yeah, I know that he might not be in your history books, but he should be. And if he's not, that's what this video is for. All right, guys, so that's all I have for you. Hopefully what I shared will make some kind of impact on you. Please feel free to pass it along to your friends. Remember, each one, reach one, teach one. Bye for now. Until next time, have a good night.